Daniel never thought a simple joke could change his whole life. He was a human engineer working far away from Earth on a giant station called Starhaven. The station floated at the edge of the Orion Passage, a busy route where hundreds of alien ships came and went every day. It was not just a trade stop. It was also a place where different alien cultures met, shared ideas, and sometimes argued. Daniel had been on the station for almost 2 years. He liked his work. Fixing engines, repairing hulls, and adjusting the strange machines of alien visitors kept him busy. He also liked watching the many species pass through, some tall and glowing like crystals, some short with thick skin like living stone, and others so delicate they looked like glass. Humans were still new among the stars, and Daniel often felt small in comparison. But he had learned that being clever with his hands made him useful to almost everyone. That day started like any other. Daniel was in the central plaza of Starhaven, a vast hall where traders and travelers gathered under the high dome of glass. Above, the stars shone clear through the shield, and below, voices of dozens of languages mixed together. He was sharing a meal with a group of friendly merchants from the Luthari, a race of tall beings with soft feather-like hair. They always asked him questions about Earth. "Human custom is strange," one Luthari said, clicking its beak-like mouth as it studied him. "Do humans join with one partner for life?" Daniel laughed. He was used to these questions. Sometimes, but not always. "Many people stay single too." "Single?" the alien asked, tilting its head. "Yes," Daniel said with a smile. "Like me, still waiting. Still free." He lifted his drink in a playful way and added, "Lucky me, right? No chains yet." The merchants tried to laugh, though their feathers twitched in confusion. Human humor was not always easy for them to follow. Daniel didn't think much of it. He had made this joke before. It always lightened the mood, but what he didn't notice was that a group of royal guards had been standing near the edge of the plaza, and among them, 2 tall figures with silver blue skin and bright violet eyes were watching. They were the royal twins of the Sarathi Empire, princesses known across the stars for their beauty, strength, and authority. The twins exchanged a quick glance when Daniel spoke. In their culture, to declare "I am single" in public was no small thing. It was a statement of readiness, a call for companionship, and to do it before witnesses was almost the same as sending an open invitation. Daniel finished his meal and returned to his workshop, completely unaware that his words had already traveled far. The plaza was alive with whispers, and soon, even the council that ran Starhaven had heard about the human who had declared his single status in front of the Sarathi twins. That evening, Daniel was working late in his repair bay. He had a half-opened generator on the table, wires spread like veins. His hands were stained with grease, and he hummed softly to himself. He didn't notice the shadows moving outside until the doors slid open with a heavy hiss. 2 royal guards stepped in, their armor polished like dark glass. Behind them came the twins. Daniel froze. He had seen them only from afar before. Up close, they were almost overwhelming. Their silver blue skin shimmered under the lights, and their long hair, one with strands like midnight, the other like dawn, framed faces that were calm but sharp. They looked alike, yet there was something different in their eyes. One pair glowed with command, the other with quiet thought. "Human Daniel," the taller twin said. Her voice carried like music but left no room for refusal. "You spoke today in the plaza." Daniel blinked, wiping his hands nervously. Yes? Did I say something wrong?" The other twin stepped forward, her tone softer. "You declared you were single. In our hearing, do you understand what this means?" Daniel's heart skipped. He felt heat rise in his face. "Wait, no, that was just a joke." "Human humor." "I didn't mean—" The taller twin lifted a hand, silencing him. "In our people's law, such a statement cannot be dismissed. When spoken before witnesses, it is a calling, and we, the heirs of the Sarathi throne, answer it." Daniel dropped the tool he was holding. "Answer it? You mean no, no, no." "I was kidding. On Earth, it's just a light thing. Something people say without meaning much." The softer twin tilted her head, studying him. "Do humans often speak without meaning?" Daniel rubbed his face. "Sometimes it's a way to make people laugh." "I didn't know anyone important was listening." The guards shifted, their eyes sharp. Daniel suddenly felt like he was standing in a court trial. The taller twin stepped closer. "Whether you meant it or not, the call was made, and we have chosen to accept it. You will remain with us." His heart pounded. "Remain?" With you? As consort, the taller twin said. Daniel's mouth went dry. This couldn't be real. Just hours ago, he had been eating lunch and laughing. Now 2 alien princesses were claiming him because of one bad joke. The softer twin's eyes softened. Do not fear. We will not force you against your will. But understand, by our people's custom, to reject a royal answer is to insult the throne itself. The council already knows. The whispers spread fast. You are at the center now, whether you wish it or not. Daniel felt dizzy. He leaned against the table, trying to think. How could he explain? How could he escape without causing a diplomatic storm? The twins watched him closely. The taller one's gaze was firm like steel. The softer one's was gentler, almost kind, but no less determined. At last, Daniel managed a weak laugh. This is crazy. I just wanted a quiet life fixing machines. Now you're telling me I'm, what, part of an empire? Not part, the taller twin corrected. At the heart. The softer twin stepped closer, her voice low. Do not be afraid, Daniel. We only wish to know you. You will have time. But you cannot run from this. Daniel looked from one to the other. He wanted to say no, to shout that this was all wrong. But the words caught in his throat. The weight of the moment pressed on him. The guards, the princesses, the knowledge that a whole culture might see his refusal as an insult. He swallowed hard. I need to think. The taller twin gave a slow nod. Think, but do not delay. We will return for your answer. And with that they turned, their guards following them out. The doors slid shut, leaving Daniel in silence. He sank into his chair, running his hands through his hair. A joke, one stupid joke. And now, 2 alien princesses demanded he stay with them. Outside, the stars shone bright, unaware of the storm beginning inside one human's life. Daniel could hardly sleep that night. The words of the twins echoed in his mind like heavy bells. You will remain with us. He tossed and turned in his small cabin, staring at the ceiling lights that glowed faintly in night mode. He had come to Starhaven for a simple life, fixing ships, earning credits, and maybe one day saving enough to visit Earth again. But now everything felt like it was falling apart. By morning, he dragged himself out of bed, eyes heavy, and went to the workshop. Tools and broken machines were waiting for him, and normally they gave him peace. But even as he tightened bolts and checked wires, his hands trembled. He couldn't stop thinking about what would happen if he said no. Would the Sarathi Empire see it as an insult? Would the station council blame him for starting a crisis? The door slid open with a hiss. Daniel looked up, expecting a customer. Instead, 3 station officials walked in. 2 humans in formal robes and 1 insect-like ambassador from the Karenni. Their expressions told Daniel this was serious. Daniel, one of the humans said, we need to talk. He set down his wrench slowly. I didn't do anything wrong. It was just a joke. The Karenni ambassador clicked its mandibles. A joke to you. A declaration to them. The Sarathi twins are not ordinary nobles. They are heirs. Their word carries weight, Daniel sighed. I didn't mean it like that. Humans make light comments all the time. The other human leaned forward. You must understand, the Sarathi are old allies to the station. If they feel insulted, it could harm trade, maybe even bring conflict. The council cannot afford that. So you're saying, Daniel said slowly, that if I say no, everyone here suffers? Silence followed. No one wanted to say it directly, but the answer was clear. Daniel rubbed his forehead. Great. Just great. As the officials left, Daniel felt trapped. He hadn't asked for this. He hadn't asked for attention, for politics, for royalty. Yet now he was right in the center. Later that day, the twins returned. They entered his workshop again, though this time without the full escort of guards. Perhaps they wanted to appear less threatening. The taller twin, whose name he learned was Soraya, carried herself with confidence. Every step was sharp, as though she was used to commanding armies. The softer twin, named Leora, moved with grace and calmness, her eyes studying everything with quiet curiosity. Daniel, Soraya began firmly, have you thought about our claim? Daniel swallowed. Yes, and I still don't understand why you're so serious. On Earth, being single is just... It's normal. We joke about it. Leora tilted her head. And yet, to speak of it openly is rare among humans, is it not? If it is so common, why did you say it before a crowd? Daniel opened his mouth, then shut it. He hadn't really thought about that. Because I was trying to make them laugh. Words carry weight, Soraya said. even when wrapped in laughter. Daniel rubbed his face. Look, I'm just a mechanic. You two are royalty. Doesn't this seem a little uneven to you? Leora smiled softly. Perhaps that is what makes it interesting. You see the world with eyes different from ours. That is why we choose you. Her words made Daniel pause. He noticed now how different the sisters truly were. Soraya stood like a blade, strong and unwavering. Leora was like water, gentle but deep. Together, they made an unusual pair, and both were looking at him as though he was already part of their world. Daniel shook his head. I don't want to insult anyone, but I don't belong in palaces or thrones. I fix machines, not empires. Soraya's lips curved slightly, almost like a smirk. You fixed more than machines yesterday. You fixed our attention. That cannot be undone. Before Daniel could answer, a sudden alarm echoed through the station. Red lights flashed, and the walls vibrated with a low hum. An automated voice announced, Warning! Perimeter breach! Unknown ships detected. Soraya and Leora turned sharply, their expressions changing from calm to focused. Stay behind us, Soraya ordered. Daniel frowned. Wait, what's happening? Leora explained quickly. Raiders. They attack trade routes often. But to strike Starhaven is bold. The twins moved toward the door, their movements fast and precise. Daniel hesitated, then followed. The station was chaos. Sirens wailed and crowds of aliens rushed through the halls. Security officers armed themselves, preparing for the fight. Daniel's heart raced. He had seen accidents on ships, but never a full raid. As they neared the plaza, the sound of explosions shook the floor. A section of the outer hull had been hit, and raiders were boarding. They wore dark armor and carried strange energy weapons. The twins reacted instantly. Soraya raised her hand and a shimmering shield of light formed around her, deflecting enemy fire. Leora moved beside her, guiding civilians to safety with calm but firm gestures. Daniel ducked behind a pillar, unsure what to do. His instinct screamed at him to stay hidden, but then he saw a small child stumble in the open, frozen as raiders advanced. Without thinking, Daniel dashed out, grabbed the child, and pulled him to cover. Blaster fire struck the wall where he had just been. Soraya's eyes flicked toward him, surprised. You risked yourself. Daniel held the child close. Couldn't just leave him there. Leora's voice was warm. Your heart is braver than you think. The fight lasted minutes but felt like hours. Station forces finally pushed the raiders back, sealing the breached sections. Smoke filled the air and medical teams rushed in to treat the wounded. Daniel slumped against the wall, exhausted. The child's family came running, thanking him with tears in their eyes before carrying the child away. The twins approached him together. Soraya's gaze was sharp, but now there was respect in it. You faced danger without training, without armor. That is strength, Leora nodded. Now do you see? Fate does not play lightly. You were meant to stand with us. Daniel shook his head weakly. I just reacted. Anyone would have done the same. Soraya leaned closer. No, many would hide, but you chose to act. That is why we will not let you walk away. Leora's voice softened. We ask not for chains, Daniel. We ask for trust. Give us time. Stay with us and learn who we are. Daniel looked at them both, torn. Part of him wanted to run back to his quiet life in the workshop. But another part, one he didn't fully understand, was curious. These sisters weren't just demanding royals. They were leaders who carried great weight, and yet they looked at him not as a tool, but as something important. He took a deep breath. I don't know what's happening to me, but I can't promise anything yet. Soraya nodded once. Then promise only this, do not leave. Leora's eyes glowed softly. That is enough for now. And so Daniel found himself walking beside the royal twins through the crowded halls, whispers following them. He had tried to stay small, unnoticed. But now, after one careless joke and one brave act, he was being pulled into a path he could no longer escape. Daniel had never liked crowds, but now he found himself walking through them with the Sarathi royal twins at his side. Wherever they went, whispers followed. Some aliens bowed deeply, others stared in shock, and some gave Daniel looks of disbelief, as though they could not understand why an ordinary human mechanic walked beside two heirs of the Empire. Daniel wanted to disappear. But the twins, Soraya and Leora, carried themselves with such confidence that no one dared speak aloud against the sight. Daniel kept his eyes down, wishing for the safety of his workshop. The station, however, had little peace to offer. After the raider attack, tension was high. Security patrols doubled and rumors spread like wildfire. Some said the raiders had been sent by rivals of the Sarathi Empire. Others claimed the attack was a warning, that the galaxy's balance was shifting. Daniel tried to avoid the politics, but he couldn't escape the attention. The twins visited him often, sometimes with guards, sometimes alone. Soraya asked him sharp questions about Earth's armies and strategies, while Leora listened quietly as he told small stories about human families, food, and laughter. They were curious about him, each in their own way. One evening, Daniel sat in his workshop repairing a cracked engine coil. He thought he was finally alone when Leora appeared at the door. "You work late?" she said softly, stepping inside. Daniel shrugged. "Machines don't complain when I make mistakes." "People do." She watched him for a moment, then moved closer. "You still think you do not belong with us," Daniel sighed. "Because I don't. I'm not strong like you. I'm not royal. I just fix things." Leora's eyes glowed gently. "And yet when danger came, you did not hide. You fixed more than a machine that day. You gave hope." Before Daniel could reply, the station's alarms blared again. A low, rumbling voice filled the halls. "Warning! Enemy ships approaching. All sectors prepare." Daniel jumped to his feet. Not again. This time the attack was larger. Raiders returned with more ships, striking hard against Starhaven's defenses. Explosions rocked the station and emergency lights painted the halls red. Soraya stormed into the workshop, armored and ready. "They target the council chamber," she barked. "They know we are here." Guards rushed past, escorting civilians away. Daniel felt fear rising in his chest, but he saw the determination on the twins' faces. They were not afraid. They were ready. "Stay behind us," Soraya ordered again, but Daniel shook his head. "I can help. Maybe not with fighting, but with machines. If they damage the power lines or the shields, I can fix them." Soraya gave him a hard look, then finally nodded. "Stay close. Do not wander." Together they ran through the trembling halls toward the command sector. The air smelled of smoke and sparks flew from broken panels. Alien civilians scattered, their voices panicked. As they neared the chamber, they found a group of raiders already inside, trying to sabotage the control systems. Guards fought them, but the enemy had strange weapons that bent light and sound, confusing the defenders. Soraya drew a glowing blade, its edge humming with energy, and charged forward. She fought with fierce precision, each strike forcing the raiders back. Leora followed, shielding civilians with barriers of light, her calm voice guiding them to safety. Daniel froze for a moment, overwhelmed. Then he saw what the raiders were doing, planting charges on the power conduits that fed the station's defense grid. If those exploded, the shields would fall and Starhaven would be open to destruction. He dashed forward, ducking behind debris. His hands moved fast, pulling wires, disabling triggers, and disarming the bombs one by one. His heart pounded so hard he thought it would burst, but his mind focused sharply. "Machines, he understood machines, Daniel!" Leora's voice called as a raider aimed toward him. She raised a shield just in time, the energy bolt bouncing away. Daniel gave her a quick nod before diving to finish the job. Minutes later, the bombs were disarmed. The last raider fell under Soraya's blade and silence filled the chamber except for the sound of alarms. Daniel leaned against the wall, breathing hard. His hands were blackened with soot, his shirt torn, but the conduits were safe. The defense grid still had power. Soraya approached him, her blade dimming. Her eyes, usually cold and sharp, now held something different. Respect. "You risked yourself again. Without you, the station would have fallen." Leora smiled softly, stepping beside her sister. "Do you see now, Daniel? Fate weaves threads we cannot cut. You were meant to stand with us." Daniel shook his head, though his chest swelled with a strange pride. "I just did what I know. Fixed what was broken." Soraya's voice was firm. "Not everyone has the courage to act. Many who claim greatness hide in shadows. But you, an ordinary human, chose to fight with your hands and heart. That is what makes you extraordinary." The council arrived soon after, thanking the twins and Daniel. Whispers spread quickly again, but this time they were different. The story of the human who saved the defense grid spread across the station. Aliens bowed to him, calling him brave. Some even looked at him with awe. Daniel felt uncomfortable under the attention, but he could not deny the truth. He had played a part in saving Starhaven. That night, the twins invited him to dine with them in their private quarters. The room was filled with soft lights, walls covered in glowing crystals that shimmered like stars. Servants brought food from across the galaxy, though Daniel stuck to simple bread and stew. Soraya raised her glass. To Daniel of Earth, the mechanic who stood against raiders, Leora added warmly, and to the bond we now share. Daniel blushed. Please don't make me sound like a hero. I just did what anyone would do. Not anyone, Soraya corrected sharply. You, Leora leaned closer. Do you see why we cannot let you go? You are more than a joke, more than a mechanic. You are part of something greater now. Daniel lowered his eyes. He wanted to argue, to insist he didn't belong, but deep inside he felt something stirring, a strange mix of pride, fear, and curiosity. He had never thought himself important, yet now the galaxy seemed to think otherwise. As the meal ended, Soraya's voice grew softer. You have earned our respect, Daniel. Not because of law, not because of custom, but because of your choices. From this day, you are no longer just a man of Earth. You are one who carries the trust of Sarathi heirs. Daniel looked at the twins, their faces glowing in the crystal light. He still didn't know if he could accept their demand. But he knew one thing. His life could never return to what it was. For the stars had tested him and he had been found worthy. The palace gardens were alive with color that morning. Flowers from across the galaxy bloomed in carefully arranged beds, their petals glowing faintly in the sunlight. Birds with wings like crystal darted through the air, singing soft songs that blended with the whisper of the fountains. Ethan had never seen anything like it. The air smelled fresh and sweet, and for the first time since arriving, he felt almost at peace. Almost. Because on either side of him walked Princess Lyra and Princess Selene, the royal twins of Zephyra, each trying to pull his attention toward herself. Lyra, bright and playful, laughed as she picked a glowing fruit from a vine and offered it to him. Selene, calm and serious, adjusted his collar as if he already belonged in the palace. Both women acted as though Ethan's life was no longer his own but theirs to share. Eat, Lyra insisted, pressing the glowing fruit into his hand. It will give you strength. You will need it for the ceremony tonight. What ceremony? Ethan asked nervously. The binding of companionship, Selene answered simply. The people must see you with us. Ethan froze mid-step. Hold on, you mean in front of everyone? Selene nodded. Lyra only giggled and skipped a few steps ahead, her long silver hair catching the light. Ethan rubbed his forehead. I told you I was only joking about being single. Where I come from, teasing like that doesn't mean I'm agreeing to stay forever. Selena's eyes softened, but her tone remained steady. You may not understand yet, but here words carry weight. When you spoke, the people believed you had chosen. That's not fair, Ethan muttered. Perhaps not, Lyra sang, spinning back to face him. But fate doesn't ask for fairness. Sometimes it just gives you something and you decide what to do with it. Ethan sighed. His heart was torn. Part of him wanted to run, to find a way back home before things grew more complicated. But another part of him, deeper and quieter, couldn't deny the strange warmth he felt when the twins were near. They were unlike anyone he had ever met. The garden path led to a wide balcony that overlooked the city below. From there, Ethan could see towers that sparkled like glass, airships drifting lazily across the sky, and citizens dressed in bright robes walking through busy markets. Children pointed upward, waving at the balcony. And to his surprise, they were waving at him. They already know? Ethan asked in disbelief. Of course, Selene said. The moment you entered this palace, you became part of their story. Lyra leaned on the railing, her smile wide and mischievous. You're the most interesting thing to happen here in years. A human from another world teasing about staying single and now tied to us. Oh, they love it. Ethan's face heated. Great, so I'm just entertainment. No, Selene said firmly, placing a hand on his shoulder. You are more than that. You are hope. Her words carried a weight he could not ignore. Ethan looked at the people below again. They didn't see him as an outsider. They looked up with curiosity, wonder, maybe even admiration. For the first time since his arrival, he realized that his presence had meaning beyond his own confusion. That evening, the palace glowed with lanterns shaped like stars. Musicians played soft melodies on instruments that shimmered as if made from moonlight. Long tables were filled with foods Ethan couldn't name but found strangely delicious. The binding ceremony was no small event. It was a grand celebration. Ethan wore robes of deep blue trimmed with silver, chosen by the palace attendants. Lyra clapped her hands when she saw him. Perfect. You look like a true royal companion. Celine only gave a small approving nod, though her eyes lingered on him a moment longer than necessary. The great hall filled quickly, courtiers in golden armor, advisors in long robes, and nobles from distant lands all gathered. The twins stood proudly at the center of the hall with Ethan between them. A hush fell when the high priestess entered, her robes flowing like liquid light. She raised her staff. "Tonight, under the stars of Zephyra, we witness a choice. The royal twins have called, and a heart has answered. May this bond bring strength to the kingdom and peace to the people." Ethan swallowed hard. This was more than a ceremony. It was a declaration to the entire world. He wanted to protest, to explain that he never agreed to this. But when he turned his head and saw Lyra's hopeful smile and Celine's steady gaze, his voice caught in his throat. The priestess motioned for Ethan to step forward. "Do you stand with them?" she asked. The hall grew silent. Every eye was on him. Ethan's mind raced. He thought of home, of Earth, of his simple life before all this. But he also thought of the kindness he had seen here, of the people who already looked to him, of the twins who believed he was meant to be part of their future. Finally he spoke, his voice steady. "I will not turn away." The hall erupted in cheers. Lyra leapt forward, wrapping her arms around him. Celine gave a small smile and touched his arm with quiet pride. But even as the celebration began, Ethan's heart twisted with uncertainty. He had spoken without truly knowing what it meant. And as he looked across the hall, he noticed a figure in dark robes watching from the shadows. Unlike the others, this stranger did not cheer. Instead, they turned and slipped away, unnoticed by all but Ethan. Later that night, when the music softened and the guests began to leave, Ethan sat on a balcony with the twins. The stars stretched endlessly above, brighter and closer than he had ever seen on Earth. "You did well," Celine said quietly. "The people believe in you now." "I didn't have much choice," Ethan admitted. "There is always a choice," Lyra said softly. "But sometimes the hardest choice is to stay when every part of you wants to run." Ethan looked at them both. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but he knew one thing for certain. The moment he teased about being single had changed everything. And now, whether he wanted it or not, his path was bound to theirs. Far below, in the quiet streets of the city, the figure in dark robes walked quickly through the alleys. They carried news of the human, of the binding ceremony, and of the twins' choice. Not everyone would be happy about this union. And soon, Ethan would learn that being tied to royalty meant facing dangers he had never imagined. The celebration had ended, but Ethan could not sleep that night. The palace was quiet, yet his thoughts were loud. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling of his grand chamber, wondering if he had made a mistake. He had spoken the words in front of the people, but he still didn't know what future awaited him. He rose and stepped onto the balcony. The stars of Zephyra stretched endlessly, glowing brighter than any night sky on Earth. For a moment the beauty gave him peace, but then his eyes caught something unusual below. Figures moving in the shadows near the palace walls. They weren't guards. They moved too quickly, too carefully. Before he could call out, the door behind him opened. Celine entered, her long robe trailing softly across the floor. "You cannot sleep?" she asked gently. Ethan shook his head. "No, something doesn't feel right. Look down there." He pointed toward the shadows. Celine followed his gaze, and her eyes narrowed. "You saw them too. I feared this might happen." "What do you mean?" Ethan asked. "There are those who oppose this bond," Celine said quietly. "They believe an outsider should not stand beside us. Some of them will do anything to stop it." Before Ethan could reply, Lyra rushed in, her usual cheerful face now serious. "The guard spotted intruders near the east wall. We must act fast." The twins led Ethan through secret passages of the palace. The halls were lit only by faint lanterns, and the sound of their footsteps echoed against stone walls. When they reached a hidden balcony overlooking the courtyard, Ethan's breath caught. Dark-robed figures, at least a dozen of them, were climbing the palace walls. Their movements were swift like trained fighters. "Who are they?" Ethan whispered. "Rebels," Celine said grimly. "They wish to weaken the throne. And tonight they come for you." "Me?" Ethan was shocked. "Why me?" "Because you are the bond," Lyra explained. "Without you, they believe they can break our unity. They think the people's faith will falter." Ethan's stomach tightened. He had never been a fighter, never faced enemies like this. Yet here he was, caught in the center of royal conflict. The twins turned to him. Lyra's eyes burned with determination. "You must stay close to us." "We will protect you," Selene added firmly. "But you must also be strong. Fear will not help you tonight." Before he could answer, the rebels broke through the lower gates. Guards clashed with them, swords sparking in the night. The courtyard filled with shouts and the ring of steel. One of the rebels spotted Ethan on the balcony and pointed.
"There, the outsider!"
Arrows flew. Ethan ducked as Selene raised her arm, summoning a shimmering shield of energy that deflected the arrows with a crackle of light. Lyra leapt forward, calling down a streak of lightning from the sky that struck the courtyard and scattered the attackers. Ethan stared in awe. He had known the twins were powerful, but seeing them fight was breathtaking. They moved like two halves of the same force, Selene calm and precise, Lyra wild and brilliant, but the rebels were relentless. They climbed higher, some reaching the very balcony where Ethan stood. A masked figure lunged at him. Ethan stumbled back, but instinct took over. He grabbed a fallen guard staff from the floor and swung it clumsily, knocking the rebel aside. His arm shook, but he stood his ground. Selene's voice rang out. "Good, do not falter." Lyra laughed even in the chaos. "See? Our human has fire in him after all." Together they fought through the night. Ethan was no warrior, but he refused to hide. He blocked blows, shoved attackers away, and stood between the twins when danger drew near. Each strike he made was clumsy, but his courage gave the guards strength. They saw him not as an outsider, but as one of their own. At last, the final rebel was driven back into the shadows. The palace courtyard was scarred, but the throne still stood. The people, awakened by the noise, gathered in the streets. They cheered as the guards raised their weapons in victory. Ethan's chest heaved with exhaustion. His arms ached from holding the staff. He leaned against the balcony railing, trying to catch his breath. Lyra rushed to him, her smile bright once more. "You were wonderful. Did you see yourself out there?" Ethan shook his head. "I barely survived." Selene stepped closer, her voice calm but filled with pride. "You stood your ground. That is more than enough. You showed the people your heart tonight." Ethan looked down at the crowd. They weren't just cheering for the victory. They were cheering for him. His mind swirled with disbelief. Hours ago he had doubted his place here, but now he felt something different. For the first time he truly belonged. The high priestess arrived, her staff glowing faintly. She studied Ethan with wise eyes. "The bond has been tested. Fire reveals truth, and tonight the truth is clear. The outsider is no outsider. He is one of us now." The crowd roared again. Ethan's throat tightened. He remembered his life on Earth, simple, quiet, ordinary. He had never imagined himself standing in a royal palace, fighting rebels and being declared part of a kingdom. And yet, here he was. Later, when the palace had quieted again, Ethan stood with the twins in the garden. The night air was cool and the stars shimmered above them. "I never asked for this," Ethan admitted softly. "But maybe it's what I was meant to find." Selene nodded. "Sometimes destiny does not ask for permission. It simply arrives." Lyra grinned and nudged his arm. "And sometimes destiny is more fun when it surprises you." Ethan laughed, tired but genuine. "You both are impossible." Selene's expression softened. "Yet you stay." Ethan looked at them both, the playful spark in Lyra's eyes, the steady calm in Selene's gaze, and he knew the answer. "Yes, I stay." The twins smiled together, their hands reaching out to clasp his. For the first time, Ethan did not feel trapped by the bond. He felt chosen. Not by accident, not by a mistake of words, but by something deeper. The garden was silent except for the whisper of the fountain. Above, the stars seemed brighter than ever, as if the world itself approved of his choice, and so, the human who once teased about being single now stood bound to two royal hearts, not by force but by courage, trust, and the strange path destiny had given him. The story of Ethan and the royal twins was only beginning. But for now, under the endless sky of Zephyra, he was at peace.